Good evening, Warriors! Back with another episode of Vigor Warriors 2 in the 1% Club. Hope you guys are doing well. I have to try to continue to curb my enthusiasm here, but I'm not going to continue to do too much, my friends, because the power is overwhelming. It's just unbelievable to me, the truth in what we're seeing here. Now, the issue is, of course, that we have a lot of people who don't believe, and they have the right to kind of believe in what they want to believe in. But hopefully the 1% of our club that's going to grow and grow and all of a sudden continue to be more vigorous as we get older, more excellent, and actually more in control of our life as much as possible. So a lot of great comments. We're going to talk about one today that Alan made about Jezebel, and we'll kind of tie it in a little bit. Dwayne had some nice comments about energy from women as well. And also my friend Monalisa. Thank you, Monalisa, always for commenting. You made some interesting comments that we'll talk about in a second as we go along as well. And continue to comment, guys. I'll kind of continue to go through a lot of these that we talk about. And, I always love the comments that you guys are making as we do this. So let's kind of talk about this topic we're talking about. So Alan is talking about Jezebel. And if you guys remember in the Bible, we talk about Jezebel, who's a person who is, really kind of taking energy, right? Very strong and very tempting. And the person who is not really interested in you necessarily, interested in their own gain. And we see this temptation. A lot of people are in this category. A lot of people, a lot of warriors, you're going to meet a lot of people who are self-interested, whether it's men or women. And you're going to see them kind of taking your energy, whether it's physical, whether it's the emotional type of energy. And so when we talk about this concept, let's kind of go back a little bit and kind of think about what we're talking about. We're talking about energy here. So I want you guys, and this kind of refers back to some comments Monalisa made and other people have made over what we're talking about here. So this is not something we're talking about where it's a physical thing we're talking about. We're talking about energy a person has. And you don't want to lose that energy you have for no reason. Now, let's go back to the reason we talk about a lot of this. We talk about the fact that people are tempted because they certainly can't control their nature. Now, you say to yourself, what is the nature? And I think Monalisa's arguing that you can't hide away from sex forever. You need sex, and therefore you're not really controlling yourself. You're just kind of putting it away in your subconscious mind, and you can't really control it, so you're not really doing too much of anything. Well, I think I'd like to kind of push back, Monalisa, a little bit, and I'd like you to kind of think about this a little bit. What's the purpose of sex? We're in a society right now that everybody is pushing sex. Sex is important. They say it's healthy. They say you need this, and they say that you can't live without it. Well, I think that's wrong. I think, my friends, we need to kind of take a step back a little bit and understand what we're talking about here. God has given you the ability to procreate for a reason. Not to have pleasure for a reason, but to procreate. That means losing the energy. Now, we know, we'll talk about this in another video, you can have sex without ejaculating. You can have sex without releasing. Doesn't necessarily mean you're going to release. And so, Mona and Lisa, there's a way you can have sex without actually releasing if you really wanted to. But the question goes back to, why are you having sex? Why is that important? Because, my friend, the more important it becomes, the more you're a slave to the sex. And that's where Jezebel comes in. Jezebel comes in because you're a slave to the sex. At some point in time you need that. You need that sex. And because of that, Jezebel can use that. Any temptation, any person can use that to hold you intact. And I think as Dwayne and other people talk about, women sense your energy. They want your energy. I see it every day. I've seen it several times again today. Like I said, it's a mystery to me after all these years what's been happening, because it never happened to me up until the last few days. And by the way, I think Hoaxbuster, when I talk about almost 1,000 days, I think it's 980 some days, I have not released or porn for that period of time. So that's kind of where and I'm old enough where I don't really have the wet dreams you're talking about. So I'm not really in that category. But I will make a statement fact here. It's taken 47 years to do this. And the reason why I do these videos is try to help and provide information for those who I don't want this happening to them. I mean, it was a long, grueling battle. And I faced a lot of those questions like Monalisa's asking, questions that Dwayne's asking, a lot of people asking about, all these type of things. Alan's asking about all these type of things are things that I went over and over and over. And so I talk from a lot of analyzing this and breaking down in my own experiences what's been happening. And I could tell you the fact that all these years when I said, okay, you need to have sex, I was a slave to sex. There's no doubt about that. But the big question is, what do you need sex for? Now, it seems like an obvious answer in this society when we're plastered all over the place on the internet and television with this. The question is, right, what is the real purpose of it? If you're going to have a child, yes, you can, But in the old days, a lot of people didn't have sex until they got married because they were going to have children. And you don't see all those people dying early in age. You don't see those people having miserable lives, right? It's only because we're taught and brainwashed by the society that you need to have sex all the time. See, in fact, guys, the idea is that should be just one aspect of your life, just like anything else. So when we talk about this, there is a level of control that you can get. Now, of course, God is the major control, and you're a co-creator with God, in my opinion. So therefore, you can go ahead and have some level of control, just like you could over alcohol. You can make a choice. You can make a choice to have sex. You can make a choice not to have sex. Choice to have alcohol. You can make a choice not to have alcohol. If you know it's a tempting issue and you know Jezebels are out there, they're very powerful, are you going to put yourself in that position to allow that to happen? That's the key. But if you sit there and start saying, I know it's inevitable that you're going to need sex again, well, of course you become a slave to it. Because you're setting yourself up in that situation. And that's why I say, my friends, I would like you to rethink what you think about all this. And the whole idea of sex. Because a lot of people think of it in terms of pleasure. And again, we talk about pleasure in many different ways. But pleasure is where Satan starts with his temptation. Now you're going down a slippery path. And so, my friends, when you talk about this, you're talking about an entity that you're going to miss. Oh, it's inevitable that you're going to drink. Well, no, it's not. It's inevitable that you're going to have to be obese. No, it's not. So why is it inevitable that you need sex? See, we're brainwashed, my friends, into thinking that sex is something that's inevitable. That sex is something that is needed, or else you're not going to be a human being. Now, of course, nothing wrong with sex. There's nothing wrong with having a partner. But it's how you look at the situation that I want to focus on here. And the fact of the matter is, you do become a slave to anything that you think you can't control, or you think you can't stop, or you think that's inevitable. You're going to be a slave. It's just a matter of time. And as Monalisa says, you're right. When you're a slave, that's in the back of your mind, and it's just going to come out at some point, and you can't stop it. But as human beings, I would hope to think that we have control to some level of our decisions, which makes us different than the animals that are around us. You would hope that a person can decide, okay, I'm not going to go drink tonight, or I'm not going to go gamble. Now, once you're in that cycle and temptation, well, yes, it's very hard. It was hard for me for 47 years. I get it. But it is prevention, my friends, that we're talking about here. We're not talking about not having sex. We're not talking about you can have sex and not release if you wanted to. But the question becomes, my friend, is it the most dominating force in your life? This pornography is terrible. This idea that people want to release all the time and have sex all the time, I think it's destroying people. Because you think about this, my friend, if that's your dominating force, what are you really doing? What is your purpose in life? What are you really doing, warriors? What are you really going out there doing? Are you really accomplishing anything that's going to better the world? Yeah, you can actually say if you're going to procreate, at least you're going to create a child in the world. But if you're just out there with a lot of body counts and doing this and saying, oh, it's inevitable, you're going to do this, inevitable to this, then all of a sudden, now you're thinking, okay, now all of a sudden, I can't stop this, so go ahead. And Oscar Wilde had a great quote one time. He said, to break a habit, indulge in it. So go ahead. Have sex as much as you want, right? This is why, my friends, it's important to realize how much power you do have within yourself and with God's help. I have seen people make miraculous changes in their life, and they lived many glorious years focusing on other things than greed, than money, than sex, material things, right? We're talking about a spiritual thing, and this is why Jezebel can attack people. Jezebel is just another form of Satan, the evil one. And the reason that Satan can attack is because you're focusing on a material thing. Sex is a material thing for people. It's a person of flesh. It's an activity. It's not a spiritual thing in most cases. And so basically what you're doing is you're just exchanging fluids with somebody for whatever reason. But you're doing the same thing watching pictures and watching images. So the bottom line, my friends, is what are you doing that for? And why are you doing this makes no sense. Now, I could say that because I had 47 years of this. Why? And I could not stop myself. So I understand. I get it. But the reason we do these videos, the reason we talk about it, is for prevention, to understand what you're doing here. Why are we doing this? Why are you doing this? I mean, are we back to the ages where people are so barbarian that they cannot control themselves? Interesting question. And so the inevitable type of thing that Monalisa is talking about is the fact that, okay, it's not the question of that you can't stop it, but what do you want? What do you when you want it again? Okay. So my question is, why do you want it again? That's an interesting question, isn't it? Because it really talks about the fact that if you don't want it, you'll probably end up getting it more. Because psychologically, you're not caring that much about it. And we know that from psychology, that when you release yourself energy-wise, people come to you. And you can have it if you wanted to. But the question is, why? For pleasure? Sure. You want a little pleasure? But the question is it really pleasure? Or does it hurt you more than help you? That's an interesting question. Because if you took sex out of people's lives, they'd be miserable, right? Or maybe not. All right, my friends. Great comments. Thank you, Monalisa. Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Dwayne. Great comments. We're going to talk about Samson and Delilah tomorrow because, once again, we have a number of people asking about these type of things and talking about Satan. But I did want to talk about Jezebel a little bit. I think, again, guys, we have to keep in mind what we're talking about is energy here. We're not talking about a physical type of thing. We're talking about energy inside you. And that's a big difference. Your energy provides who you are. And the best example of that, guys, if you go ahead and neuter a cat, or you take away their energy, you take away their ability to have energy, they're docile. They're not accomplishing anything. They're not doing anything with their life. They're not protecting people, certainly. And so that tells you right there, in any sort of species you have, if you don't allow that energy to stay in you, except when you're mating, of course, once again, procreate, or mating if you're an animal, then why are you using that for? That's a good question, isn't it? All right, warriors. Once again, a good discussion. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And thank you guys for all your comments and likes. And I continue to be amazed, people that are interested in kind of us talking about this kind of stuff. But certainly it's a great discussion, and I thoroughly enjoy it. All right, my friends, have a good evening. And remember two things. One, every day is a new day to a great warrior. And the second thing is continue to battle